Why won't you tell me who you really are?
Maybe I'm just someone who did the right thing once. You don't even remember me at all, do you?
I remember everything. I just didn't know it was you. Someone in this house has been lying to me for months.
Then maybe it's time you finally asked the right person.
7:42 p.m. The Harbor District went quiet the way it always did after the shops pulled their shutters down, streetlights flickering on over empty sidewalks. Jazmine Woods pulled her coat tight and turned toward the bus stop, her 12-hour shift finally behind her. That's when she heard it. Crying. Small, scared, coming from behind a stack of delivery crates near the old bus terminal. Most people would have kept walking. Jazmine didn't. She knelt down and found a little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, knees pulled to his chest, shivering in a thin school blazer that cost more than her monthly rent. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, sweetheart, look at me. You're safe now." The boy flinched away from her hand. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers," he whispered. "My dad said never tell anyone who I am." Jazmine's chest tightened. A child alone trained to hide his own name. Something was very wrong here. Jazmine had spent 3 years caring for other people's dying parents, learning exactly what it looked like when a family had money but no time left to spend on each other. This felt like that, wearing a child's face. She had no idea that this frightened little boy was about to change her entire life, and that a simple pawnshop receipt would one day bring the most powerful man in Empire City to his knees. She tried the pharmacy 2 doors down, the boy's hand trembling in hers. "Please," she said. "Can he just sit inside while I figure this out? He's freezing." The pharmacist barely looked up from his register. "This isn't a daycare, ma'am. Take him to a police station." He waved them off like they were nothing at all. Jazmine swallowed the sting of it. She didn't have time to be hurt. Outside, the wind had picked up, and the boy's lips were turning pale. She crouched down in front of him again. "Okay, just me and you then. What's your name, at least? You don't have to tell me anything else." A long pause. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. "Eli. Just Eli. No last name. No address. No parent's phone number he was willing to give a stranger on a street corner." "Okay, Eli. I'm Jazmine." She sat beside him on the cold curb instead of pulling him along, because some part of her understood this child had already been rushed and hushed enough for one day. "Where's your mom or dad?" Eli's eyes filled with tears. "My mom died. My dad is busy. Always busy." He rubbed his arm. "I don't feel good. My chest feels tight." Jazmine's training from 3 years at Golden Years Home Health kicked in instantly. Wheezing. Pale lips. A boy who had clearly been running scared for longer than she'd realized. This wasn't just a lost child anymore. This was an emergency, and Jazmine had exactly $14 to her name. She flagged down a rideshare, but the app declined her card before it even connected. Rent had cleared her account that morning. The one driver who did pull up took a single look at a crying child and a stranger and drove off, muttering about liability. An ambulance would take 20 minutes. She didn't think Eli had. Jazmine's mind raced through everything she owned, and there was only one thing worth enough, fast enough. Her hand went to her neck, to the small sapphire pendant resting there. Her mother's necklace. The only thing Maxine Woods had left her before cancer took her 3 years earlier. Engraved on the back 2 words, "Always, Mama." She could still hear her mother's voice from that hospital bed, pressing the clasp into her palm. "Some things you keep. Some things you're just borrowed so you can give them away at the right moment." Jazmine had promised herself she would never part with it. She unclasped it anyway. The pawnbroker on 5th Street barely glanced at the boy gasping softly beside her. "400, he said, turning the sapphire under his loop. "Cash right now." Jazmine didn't negotiate. She signed the receipt with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking, watched her mother's necklace disappear into a velvet tray, and ran. 12 minutes later, a doctor at an urgent care clinic was listening to Eli's lungs, telling her that if she had waited even a little longer, this would have gone very differently. Jazmine sat in a plastic chair, necklace gone, cash gone, and held a stranger's son's hand until color finally came back into his face. If you've ever sacrificed something precious to save someone else, You already know exactly how Jazmine felt in that chair. Subscribe, hit like, and comment where you're watching from tonight. 2 hours later at the 4th precinct, the doors burst open and Empire City's most photographed man ran in like he had forgotten every camera that had ever loved him. Daniel Kang. Jazmine recognized the face from magazine covers she had never actually read. He dropped to his knees in front of Eli, pulling him into his arms, and for 1 second Jazmine saw something rare. A billionaire completely undone. Then his eyes found her, and the relief hardened into something sharper. Who are you? His voice cracked, more fear than anger. Why does my son trust you? What do you want from us? Jazmine felt the question land like a slap. She had spent her only valuable possession and the last of her cash on a boy she had never met, and this man's first instinct was suspicion. I don't want anything, she said quietly. I found him alone and scared. That's all. Eli tugged his father's sleeve. Dad, she took care of me. She gave up her. It's okay, Eli. Jazmine cut in gently before he could finish. She wasn't ready to explain a necklace to a man who was already looking at her like she might be dangerous. She squeezed Eli's hand once, told him to take care of his heart, and walked out into the night before Daniel Kang could say another word. Ask yourself this: if you gave up everything for a stranger's child and got suspicion instead of thanks, would you still do it again? Comment your answer below because Jazmine is about to walk straight back into that boy's world. 6 months passed. Jazmine kept working her hospice cases, kept wearing the small pale mark on her collarbone where the necklace used to sit, and told herself the boy from that night was doing just fine, somewhere far above her world. Then Golden Years Home Health assigned her a new client, an elderly Korean grandmother recovering from hip surgery, living at a private estate in the Ridgeview Hills. Jazmine walked through the front doors of the address on her clipboard and nearly dropped her bag. Marble floors, a wall of glass overlooking the harbor, and halfway down the staircase a boy froze mid-step, eyes going wide. Jazmine! Eli came flying down the stairs so fast his grandmother gasped, and threw both arms around Jazmine's waist like he had rehearsed this moment in his dreams for 6 months straight. You found me, he said into her coat. No, buddy, she laughed, stunned. I think you found me. Daniel appeared in the doorway of his study, phone still in his hand, and went completely still. The woman who had vanished from a police station 6 months ago, the one his private investigator had spent a fortune failing to locate, was standing in his front hallway, holding his son like she had never left. For the first time since Sarah died, Eli laughed at the dinner table. He asked Jazmine to check his homework. He fell asleep in the den with his head on her arm instead of a tablet glowing in his lap. Vivian Marsh, who had run this household with quiet, total control for 2 years, watched all of it from the kitchen doorway with her jaw tight. We don't actually know anything about this woman, she told Daniel that night. Actually, Daniel said, still watching Jazmine through the glass wall of the playroom, I think I finally do. For 6 months he had chased a ghost, a description, a dead-end call to a pawnshop that claimed its records were destroyed. Now the ghost was reading his son a bedtime story 2 rooms away, asking for nothing, expecting nothing at all. For once, Vivian didn't have an answer ready. And for once, Daniel didn't ask her for one. One night, Jazmine found Daniel alone on the terrace, staring at nothing. Eli told me about his mom, she said gently, sitting a careful distance away. You don't have to talk about it. Sarah used to say I'd build an empire and forget to actually live in it, Daniel said. After she died, I hired people to do the parts of fatherhood that scared me. Nannies, tutors, Vivian. I told myself money was the same thing as showing up. It isn't. He turned to her. That night at the precinct, I looked at the one person who had actually shown up for my son, and I accused her of wanting something from us. You were scared, Jazmine said. I know exactly what fear does to people. What does it do to you? The question caught her off guard. Her hand drifted to the bare skin at her collarbone. An old habit now. My mother died 3 years ago. This necklace was the last thing she ever gave me. I sold it that night for a boy I'd never met, because some part of me couldn't watch another person's child go through what I went through. Alone, scared, with no one stopping to help. She hadn't meant to say that much. Daniel simply reached over and for the first time took her hand. He didn't let go for a long while. For the first time since her mother's funeral, Jazmine let herself imagine what it might feel like to be the one who got taken care of just once. It was Renee who saw it first. A gossip blog post with a grainy photo of Jazmine leaving the Kang estate, the headline dripping with insinuation. Grieving billionaire's mystery nurse, gold digger, or con artist? Jazmine's stomach dropped. The quotes inside came from an unnamed source close to the family. Only a handful of people knew her schedule that precisely. Her agency called that same afternoon. A formal complaint had been filed, accusing her of overstepping professional boundaries with the client's family. Jazmine sat in her car outside the estate, hands shaking, watching 6 months of trust unravel in a single news cycle. When she finally worked up the courage to ask Daniel if he had seen it, his jaw tightened in a way she didn't recognize. "Vivian handles our press," he said carefully. "I'm sure she's already on it." Jazmine studied his face and felt something cold settle in her chest. He wasn't defending her. He was managing a problem. That night, for the first time since their reunion, Eli asked why Jazmine looked like she was about to cry, and Jazmine realized she had no idea how to explain that loving this family might cost her everything all over again. Predicted in the comments, "Who do you think really leaked that story? Because the truth is coming, and it's bigger than anyone in that house is ready for." The truth came from the last person anyone expected to find it, Renee, because she refused to let the story die quietly. She spent 3 nights combing through an old pawnshop's security archive, the same footage the shop had once claimed was destroyed in a flood. Buried in the records, she found a payment, a large cash sum paid to the shop owner, the same week Daniel's investigator first came asking questions, to make sure that footage disappeared for good. The payment traced back to a corporate card. Vivian Marsh's card. Daniel stared at that fact for a long moment. He had trusted Vivian with his son's entire world since Sarah died. He never once imagined he needed to protect Eli from her too. That same night, he sat alone at his desk with 2 objects in front of him, the record Renee had just sent him, and a small sapphire necklace he had quietly bought back from that pawn shop 5 months earlier, the day his investigator finally found a partial match. Unable to stop thinking about a woman who had given up something precious and asked for nothing back. He had kept it locked in his desk drawer for 5 months, too unsure how to explain why he even had it. Now finally he understood everything. Vivian hadn't only buried the truth about who saved Eli. She had been the one supposed to be watching him that very night. She had stepped away for a call with a rival company, Grantham Pacific, quietly securing her own next job, and Eli had wandered off in the 90 seconds she wasn't looking. She had covered her own negligence for 6 months, and the moment Jazmine walked back into their lives, Vivian leaked the story herself, rather than risk anyone tracing those 90 seconds back to her. Daniel closed his hand around the necklace. Every suspicious question he had ever asked Jazmine, she had deserved the exact opposite. Daniel called Vivian into his study the next morning and set both the necklace and the record on the desk between them. He didn't raise his voice. "Eli was alone for 90 seconds because you were on a call about your next job," he said. "And instead of telling me the truth, you let an innocent woman get torn apart in the press to protect yourself." Vivian's composure finally cracked. "I've given this family 2 years, Daniel. I was scared you'd replace me the moment you didn't need me anymore." "You were right to be scared," Daniel said quietly. "Not because of one mistake. Because you chose to protect yourself instead of my son. Twice." He didn't call security. He didn't humiliate her on her way out. He simply asked her to clear her office by the end of the week, and he personally called the blog's editor to set the record straight on the record under his own name. By that evening, a new headline had replaced the old one. "The Truth About the Woman Who Saved My Son," by Daniel Kang. Jazmine read it 3 times before she cried. Not because the world finally knew, because he had stopped managing the problem and started telling the truth. Daniel found her that evening on the same terrace where she had once told him about her mother. He didn't say sorry the easy way. "I doubted you at the precinct, the same night you'd given up everything you had for my son," he said. "I let Vivian manage you like a liability instead of protecting you like you deserved. I can't undo either of those things, but I can stop doing them." He opened his hand. The sapphire necklace caught the porch light. "I've had this for 5 months. I didn't know how to give it back without explaining why I bought it, or why I couldn't stop thinking about the woman who sold it. Jazmine stared at it, then at him. This isn't a reward, he said quickly. It was never mine to give you. It was always yours. She let him fasten it around her neck, his hands careful and steady. For the first time in 3 years, the weight of it against her collarbone felt like her mother again instead of grief. I'm not looking for someone to rescue me, she told him. I already know how to survive on my own. I know, Daniel said. I'm not asking to rescue you. I'm asking to stay. Eli, who had absolutely not been listening from the doorway, chose that exact moment to come running out and wrap himself around both of them at once, nearly knocking Daniel into the railing. Jazmine laughed, really laughed, for the first time in longer than she could remember. For months later, Jazmine still worked her hospice cases 3 days a week, because some parts of who she was were never for sale. But on Wednesdays and weekends, she was at the house on Ridgeview Hills, where Eli had taped a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures and a dog they didn't own yet to his bedroom door, labeled simply, My Family. The night Eli finally fell asleep holding her hand instead of a tablet, Jazmine remembered the words she had once said to a frightened boy behind a stack of delivery crates on the coldest night of her life. You're not lost. I've got you. Standing in that doorway now, she finally understood that somewhere in the middle of saving him, she had quietly stopped being lost herself. If you believe some people save us long before we ever save them back, hit subscribe right now and tell me, what's one thing you would sacrifice for a stranger, no questions asked? Thank you for watching Empire City Romance Stories. Subscribe, like, comment, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story of love, sacrifice, and second chances.